we did not get back to growth in this quarter. So that is the negative part of it. I think there's also a positive part, which is maybe not that visible, and maybe that's also why this stock is not reacting right now. But I think the very positive news is that we were in one of our segments, so we have three segments. One of our segments, which are the Americas market, we for the first time now since a year reinvested and we're going back, taking our marketing spend up, reinvesting into growth, and we were able to grow profitably 20% year over year. So I think these two messages are both in our earnings release, and I think that one is a bit more visible, and I hope that over time people will see what the other message means for us in the long run.
Why is this a good time for you, who founded the company and currently lead the company, to step down and allow the CFO to take charge?
Yeah, I think that we always focus a lot on the urgent and a little bit less on the important. And I think succession planning is rather in the area of the important. So you do succession planning not from one quarter to another quarter. Yeah, you do it over a long time period. And actually, I was planning my succession over the last 4 years. So the Trivago leadership team is built up over the last 4 years. I'm working with my CFO now since 3.5 years. So when you're looking at, what's the right time to transition, I think it's less about, is a quarter a little bit better or the quarter a little bit worse, but it's rather about the long-term traction of the company. It's about your succession, how dependent is the company from you. It's about how is the mentality of people, and I think when we're looking at those parameters, I think then this is a really good time to hand over. Yeah, and I think that is for me the most important thing. And for me, it's not about the stock price, which I was not able to foresee anyway before. It's not about a quarter being a couple of million up or down, but it's really about the long-term traction, my belief in the fundamentals of the company, and I really do believe in this company. That's why I stay committed as a shareholder. I'm next to Expedia. I'm the second largest shareholder still in the company, and I stay committed. I stay in the board, and I do believe in the opportunities that we have.
So, Rolf, talk to us about the competitive landscape out there. There's a lot of competition in the online travel business. Let's focus on Google. How is Google competing with you, and how are you competing against Google?
Yeah, we are competing against Google, and we're doing this in 15 years. Yeah. So I started the company 15 years ago, and since then we are competing with Google, and we are able over these 15 years to acquire more and more of their share, because basically what was the case 15 years ago, that you were just going to Google and you were saying, I don't know which brand to go. Maybe I go to Google, type in hotel, type in London, and then I get my results. I think that is rather not the way of how people look for hotels today. So today you have way more branded searches than years ago. So you have a transition from very standard searches on Google. You have to more and more specialized searches towards Trivago, not only towards Trivago, also to brands like Booking.com, Expedia, and so on. The good thing is that on Trivago you can compare them all, right? So I think that is something that we have been in this competition for the last 15 years. Google is improving. I think we are improving over time, but we have been able for the last 15 years to grow against that.
Yeah. So this was a website that was created and deployed from a garage, and that's when you started it with two of your friends from university. And I'm wondering now, looking back, what do you think was the biggest thing that surprised you about the business of comparing hotel prices and travel in general that you've sort of encountered over these 15 years?
So I think something that we did not really understand in the beginning, that specialization on one topic is really important. Yeah. So I think that is something that we made wrong in the very beginning, where we said, why not also do flights? Why not do also rental cars and so on and so on. Yeah. So I think that is something that it seems intuitive. It seems intuitive that you go into one topic, why should you not also take over the others? But actually, it's not the case, because we really see that, like specializing on one area, really like digging deep, understanding the consumer and understanding the consumer needs. That is super, super, super important, yeah. And I think this was part of our success story, that we were focusing on that topic only. And I think it's still not solved, yeah. So I think there is still a lot of opportunity to improve the services for our customers, and I think there's still a long way to go.
Rolf, we literally have just 20 seconds. Do you regret IPOing in 2016, given what the share price has done?
No, I don't regret IPO. I think we had a lot of learnings, and I think just looking at the share price right now is just hopefully like a picture in between, and I think we will see it in the long run.
Rolf Stromtens, Chief Executive Officer of Trivago, thank you so much for joining us today, and best of luck to you. Trivago reporting earnings that did disappoint. The shares are struggling as a result, but really the focus on growth, trying to figure out how to expand in a market that is crowded, but also rife for disruption. So that is sort of the conundrum. This is Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are slightly higher as we get more signs the U.S. and China are moving toward a phase one trade deal. China's asking the White House to roll back some tariffs as a condition. Shake Shack tumbling today. The burger chain's third quarter comp sales missed estimates, and the company reduced its sales target. Shake Shack admits some of the problem may come from its decision to move to a single delivery provider, Grubhub. Boeing CEO Dennis Muhlenberg has turned down his bonus for the year, and he won't accept any stock grants until the troubled 737 MAX is flying again. Boeing Chairman David Calhoun told CNBC that Muhlenberg still has a confidence of the company's board. And David's Bridal reached a deal that would head off a second trip to bankruptcy court. Certain stakeholders signed an agreement that reworks about $280 million of debt and injects $55 million of new money to keep the company in business. David's Bridal sells about 25% of all bridal dresses in the U.S. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
The market's in focus every business day. The P&L Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
What's behind this engine of gains?
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
The U.S. market looks relatively safe.
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
Ward McCarthy joins us right now.
P&L with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Are you interested?
It's another Tuesday afternoon, yet another miserable day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and explore tropical rainforests. Fly from London Gatwick to Costa Rica with British Airways from £218 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
There's It's Bonfire Night happy. Listening to a banger happy. There's no traffic on the M1 happy. Bonfire and fireworks tonight happy. There's only 50 days until Christmas happy. It's almost home time happy. Getting your car sorted before the school pickup happy. You get that kind of happy from QuickFit in Watford. Book online now at quickfit.com and drive away happy. Terms and conditions apply.
This is someone making an online booking at Ford.co.uk using the words Ford20 so they can service their Ford for £20 less. And this is someone who didn't get their Ford serviced. You see, at Ford, we use Ford genuine parts and Ford trained technicians. Plus, if you quote Ford20 when you book with us online, you can receive £20 off. Book now at Ford.co.uk or visit your local participating dealer. Ford service. No one knows your Ford better.
Retail customers only. At participating Ford dealers. Cannot be used with other promotions. T's and C's apply. Search Ford Service for more information.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to dig deeper into the Uber story. The company reported earnings last night. Not enough for the street. Stocks trading down about 8% today. Plus, we'll speak to Neil Duda of Renaissance Macro, get his thoughts on the economy going forward. But first, let's go to John Tucker of Bloomberg News and get a Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
Yeah, and Paul, we have the major indices right now. They are kind of mixed after yesterday's records. Investors still digesting the latest earnings report, the economic data, and awaiting more news about the trade talks between America and China. As we look at the 10-year Treasury yields hitting their highest since September, right now the 10-year is right around 1.86% as it declines in price by 23 seconds. To get that economic data, among others, the U.S. trade deficit in goods and services narrowing in September as the White House trade war wages on. More from Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
September's trade shortfall totaled $52.5 billion, the smallest gap since April. Trade with China dropped amid a new round of White House tariffs, deepening a slump for exporters on both sides of the Pacific Ocean. Merchandise imports from China narrowed to a 3-year low, while American exports to China hit a 5-month low. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
And the service industries in the U.S., this is the biggest part of the economy, expanding more than forecast in October after tumbling to a 3-year low. A measure of employment, orders, and business activity all improved. S&P 500, 3 points lower right now, 3,074. The Dow's up 26 points at 27,488, and the NASDAQ Composite Index down 4 points at 84.29. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Uber shares down more than 7% today after reporting earnings that lagged behind what analysts had been expecting, in particular food delivery services in focus. Joining us here in our interactive broker studio is Mandeep Singh of Bloomberg Intelligence. Thank you so much for being here. So how bad was this?
Well, again, if you look at the numbers, it was really the user growth and the food delivery business that kind of fell below consensus. And the reason is this company is focusing now more on its path to profitability. It gave out a clear EBITDA goal to be positive EBITDA by 2021. And they're trying to cut down on the subsidies and raise prices at the same time. We saw that with Lyft. They're trying to raise prices. The problem with Uber is you can raise prices in the US, and it's worked so far. In the Asia markets, in the Latin America markets, it hasn't worked. And with food delivery specifically, there's a lot of competition. You can't raise prices. Once you start to raise prices, it's going to hit your top line, which is what we saw in this quarter.
So that kind of goes to the issue that the street, I think still questioning the whole unit economics here, because in order to get to that profitability number of 2021, you have to believe that they have some pricing power on the top line and that they have some ability to manage the subsidies and other things on the cost side. So where are we on that? Do we have any examples where they're actually able to do that?
Yeah, so the core ride-sharing business looks terrific. The EBITDA margin on core ride-sharing are 22%. That looks absolutely fine. And like I said, the U.S. part of the business is growing at a healthy 39%. Contrast that with Lyft, which is obviously, less than half of what Uber's size is in the U.S. And it starts to make sense because there are only two pairs and you've got pricing rationalization. It's working out on the ride-sharing side. On the food delivery side, the unit economics are still not there because there are more than 10 players. And that's why they can't raise prices. They're still using a lot of subsidies. Our view is over time, you're going to see consolidation happen region by region. And what Uber is doing specifically now is pulling out of markets where they think profitability is too far out. So they pulled out of South Korea. We think they may do the same in Brazil. So you have to really go market by market, city by city. They're not going to do that in the U.S., which is why, they're going to make sure they work it out in the U.S. and Canada market because they're attractive from a profitability perspective.
And you're talking about the Eats segment in particular? Or are you talking all around?
I'm talking everything.
But
yeah.
I want to really drill in a little bit to the Eats segment because this has been an incredibly crowded space. A lot of money poured into these food transportation startups. Is there a path to profitability for any of them if they get enough market share, or is the demand for consumers such that they don't want to pay for this?
Well, again, the good thing from an Eats perspective when it comes to Uber as a whole is it helps their top line because think of Eat delivery order is about $30, whereas a ride typically is around $10. So from a top line perspective, an Eats delivery is contributing about 3 times a normal ride. Now, from a profitability and take rate perspective, it's currently much lower. A take rate for an Eats order is around 10%, whereas for a ride-sharing ride, it's 20%.
Please forgive me for my ignorance. $30, who pays for that?
Well, again, when you're ordering food, a meal, a typical average order is around $30.
Yeah, but that's
Uber is
not
only
go to
getting
Uber,
10%.
right. Okay.
Uber is only getting 10% in revenue. But from a bookings perspective, it's very lucrative, which is when you look at Grubhub, before Uber got into food delivery, Grubhub was EBITDA positive. It had EBITDA margins of close to 10%. It's after Uber Eats came into existence and, they were so aggressive with subsidies that Grubhub has really struggled and now their margins are negative. So the point being, once this space is consolidated and you've got just 2 players, you will have pricing power. And with Uber, the power is in the platform, the synergy between ride sharing and food delivery. That's what they've been touting all along, the Amazon play and, the platform effect. We haven't seen that. But our view is once there's consolidation, there will be some synergy.
Real quickly, I understand a bunch of stock is coming on the market. I think that's probably weighing on the stock here today. Give some details there.
Well, so yeah, there are about 1.7 billion shares for Uber in total, and currently there are only 200 million shares trading. So we think about 4x times float will be added to the market starting on Wednesday. But think of it this way: Uber's sentiment around Uber stock has been really negative. Investors are concerned about profitability. So you may see that, the stock has been selling, but once we are past, there will be some sort of relief, when it comes to trading the stock.
Got it. Interesting. We'll have to see how it plays out. But again, a lot of secondary shares coming on the market after the lockup here. And we'll have to see. I think the company made a big step forward, kind of putting that number out there about cash flow profitability. So we'll see how that plays out over time. But at least they're putting kind of a mark in the sand there. Mandeep Singh, thanks so much for joining us. Mandeep Singh is a senior technology analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. And stock is trading down more than 7% today. And again, a big lockup expiration tomorrow. So there'll be some shares come on the market, most likely going forward over the near term.
Interesting. Lyft also down, but not as much.
Yeah.
Lyft down about 1.6% right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. They have a cleaner story there, I guess one could certainly say. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for world and national headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Paul, China and the U.S. plan to highlight joint efforts to crack down on fentanyl smuggling. The Chinese government says its National Narcotics Control Commission will hold a news conference on Thursday about this case after a live broadcast of the trial. Concessions on fentanyl could help President Trump sell his Phase 1 trade deal with China to a skeptical business and agriculture community back home. Meantime, the president's trying to keep his base fired up against Democrats.
They want to obliterate the rule of law, drive out faith from the public square, and you know this, silence you online, confiscate your guns.
President held an election eve rally last night in Kentucky where voters are choosing a governor today. This is also election day in Mississippi, New Jersey, and Virginia, a potential gauge of sentiment ahead of next year's presidential election. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports President Trump continues to trail top Democrats in one-on-one national polls.
The president lags behind 5 potential Democratic rivals. The Washington Post ABC News poll showed Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders perform best nationally against the president, but Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris also beat him in that poll. In the states where the president won narrowly in 2016, the president only trailed Biden by an average of 2 percentage points. Voters in Kentucky and Mississippi are choosing governors today. Virginia holds state legislative elections. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
More closed-door hearings are scheduled today in the House impeachment inquiry. Both witnesses are not expected to attend. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
Join us in New York City.
It's another Tuesday afternoon. Yet another miserable day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Experience Mexican culture and relax by the Caribbean Sea. Fly from London Gatwick to Cancun with British Airways from £275 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Ladies and gentlemen, behold the world's most fantastical, sensational number. 74 billion. Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot is a massive £74 million.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Whether you're waiting for a train or a takeaway, with Tesco Mobile you don't have to wait for a brilliant deal. Our best ever Black Friday event is on. This week you can get a Samsung Galaxy A50 for just $17.49 a month. That's our lowest ever price. Get yours by the 10th of November. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £18.99, now £17.49. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
This is someone making an online booking at Ford.co.uk using the words Ford20 so they can service their Ford for £20 less. And this is someone who didn't get their Ford serviced. You see, at Ford, we use Ford genuine parts and Ford trained technicians. Plus, if you quote Ford20 when you book with us online, you can receive £20 off. Book now at Ford.co.uk or visit your local participating dealer. Ford service. No one knows your Ford better.
Retail customers only. At participating Ford dealers. Cannot be used with other promotions. T's and C's apply. Search Ford Service for more information.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom. This Bloomberg Business Flash on a day when the major averages taking a bit of a breather from their record rises. All eyes continue to be on a pending trade deal with China. Right now, the S&P 500 5 points lower. That's down 0.2% at 3,072. The Dow Jones Industrial Average 6 points lower at 27,457. The Nasdaq Composite Index right now, that is down 10 points, down about 0.1% at 84.22. And among some of the decliners, shares of Netflix, they're lower today. Chesapeake is slumping as the gas producer, issuing what it calls a going concern warning. Some of that technical language when you have to report to the SEC. And in addition to that, we have the treasuries. They are experiencing selling up today with the yields rising. The 10-year down 23 seconds at the price. The yield up to 1.86%. NYMEX crude is up 73 cents a barrel at 57.27. And we check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, as we parse through the economic data, what's become clear to most market participants, I believe, is that the manufacturing, the business investment, that remains a area of caution. We're seeing some contraction in manufacturing, but the consumer is still there, driving this economy forward. To get the latest, we turn to our good friend Neil Dutta, Renaissance Macro, head of U.S. Economic Research. Neil, thanks so much for joining us. So give us your view of the economy. Is the consumer enough to continue to drive this economy forward?
I think so. We have, I think the, baseline is for decent consumer spending growth over the next couple of quarters. I mean, we have relatively benign inflation and labor incomes are rising at a modest rate. I mean, you have slower jobs growth, but wages are okay, and the work week is basically flat. So if you look at jobs, hours, and earnings, that's growing at about 4.5%, with price inflation below 2%. And at the same time, so in other words, the household's budget constraints still expanding, and at the same time, you've had a pretty sharp increase in mortgage refinancing. So that's freeing up household cash flow. I think that consumers are doing okay. And at the same time, it's true that investment spending's been weak, but it's also true that housing has picked up. Inventories are lean. So, I think between consumer spending and housing, that should offset the weakness we're seeing in the factory sector and investment. But, that doesn't necessarily mean that investment's going to be weak next year. I mean, you've seen a pretty notable loosening in financial conditions. Potentially global growth is sort of bottoming out here. So, the drivers of weakness for investment this year probably won't be with us next year. I mean, it's not just the global economy. Remember, 2/3 of the weakness in CapEx in the third quarter was aircraft equipment and mining structures. And, if global growth is doing better, that should mean that oil prices reflate a little bit. And that should, put some of the juice back into things like oil rigs and the like, mining structures. And
so you think that even industrials are going to get some lift here in the near future?
Well, I don't think that, Lisa. Look at the market.
That's why I'm saying, but you're saying that, they might end up getting a little bit of support from that.
Yeah, look, this is the thing. The only thing that matters right now is whether you believe, I think for macro, is if you believe price leads data, right? You either believe price leads data or it doesn't. And if price leads data, that means that the economy is going to look a little bit better next year. Listening to the bears kind of trip over themselves, the stock market's whistling past the graveyard. This is like cognitive dissonance on stilts.
Well, that's changing, though, but that's actually shifting. And I'm wondering at what point has that shifted to such a degree that it's not, people are just basically gloom and doom, and they have been since the financial crisis. And, okay, they're acknowledging the strength, and perhaps the prices accurately reflect the strength that we're seeing in the economy.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're there yet. I still think that, if you look at most, sort of measures of market sentiment, it doesn't look like there's a big euphoria right now for equities still, across a range of different sentiment metrics. The one that I look at is the Conference Board survey. You still have, more consumers being surveyed that say they think stock prices are going to fall in the next 6 months than rise. Historically, that's been a sort of useful kind of contrarian type indicator. But basically, it means that, consumers aren't really that bulled up on equities. And if consumers, aren't bulled up, that could mean that there's still some room for equities to keep going up. It's usually when retail investors are bulled up on equities when it's time to get cautious, and we're not really there yet.
Neil, do you have a recession in your forecast?
No.
Seems like, how about one of the arguments, or maybe one of the, the arguments that we hear from time to time from economists is that, you better settle in for a lower for longer, i.e. lower GDP growth for longer. The days of 3% plus are over for the foreseeable future. Is that something that you subscribe to?
Yeah, I think that's probably more that's closer to the mark. I mean, I do think that next year you could see a sort of a modest inflection in growth higher, right? So a lot of the drags on GDP growth this year probably fade off a little bit, right? So you've seen some manufacturing weakness. Maybe you don't get as much manufacturing weakness next year. The housing market kind of follows through into consumer spending on durable goods. You get a little bit of inventory restocking, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of good for maybe 2.25% or 2.5% growth. But I generally agree that this sort of rapid, kind of leg higher in growth is unlikely, absent some kind of pickup in productivity, which we haven't really seen yet. So yeah, but that's good enough for equities, right? I mean, for what matters for markets. Right, I mean, the economics outlook is the call. I mean, it's only useful insofar as it's combined with a market call, and the environment that I just described, I think, is still one where equity prices grind higher.
I guess I'm trying to square the idea that we're about to reaccelerate with the idea that the Federal Reserve just cut rates again. How does that make sense?
Well, isn't that what always happens? They cut rates and the economy picks up.
Well, hold on a second. You think that the economy is picking up because they cut rates? No. I mean, honestly, that's ridiculous to think that the credit conditions were too tight and that was sort of what was holding things back.
I mean, the refi I just did, Lisa, disagrees.
Really?
Did
you just refied your mortgage?
I did.
Okay,
yes, I did.
But here's my question.
And just multiply that. I mean, it's up 150% over the last year. So you're telling me the Fed isn't pushing on a string. They're pushing on a stick.
But they're pushing on a stick. But Neil, with the money that you saved from the refi and your monthly payments to your mortgage, are you using that money to go out and buy sweaters and hats and skis and things?
Well, yeah. I mean, I mean, it is Christmas. No, but I just think that. Look, I mean, I think it's sort of to me it's a bit misplaced to say that it's not having an effect, right? I mean, you've seen refinancings obviously pick up. That's freeing up household cash flow. We know that home sales are also up, right? So we had a little bit of sluggishness recently, I think, because of the GM strike and what that's doing to inventory. But if you told someone this time last year that auto sales would generally be running close to 17 million SAR for the last 5 or 6 months, you probably, I mean, I know that if I made that argument, clients would have left me out of the room, but that's exactly what's happened, right? Yeah. So you have had some follow through into rate sensitive spending.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, and when Powell says it's the market implied path of lower rates, and that's what's kept the economy up, I think there's some support for that.
Neil Dutta, thank you so much. Good luck with the sweater purchases and the ski purchases. Happy holidays and congratulations on refining your mortgage. Neil Dutta, Renaissance Macro, head of U.S. Economic Research, joining me and my co-host and colleague Paul Sweeney here on Bloomberg Markets.
The world's top.
It's another Tuesday afternoon. Yet another miserable day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to see spectacular coral reefs and white sand beaches. Fly from London Gatwick to Mauritius with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £949 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raj, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio on the app. Explore exclusive content, learn about hot new podcasts, and get alerted when the big game, well, it's about to begin. Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
What if you could keep up with cable news even when you're on the go? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to MSNBC live without any commercial interruptions. All of the news, none of the ads. Listen live on TuneIn Premium today.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Are we on the brink of a more serious downturn?
I've always thought of the municipal bond market as a little bit of a safe haven.
Banks are going to have to start paying their depositors more.
Are we still in that mode where we're buying the dips?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Cash, if you're looking at treasury bills, provides a higher return than stocks and bonds here in the U.S.
If your consumer is a woman, you're more likely to be a growth company.
Longer-term interest rates can go down, even with short-term interest rates still going up a little bit.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, we're going to take a look at some of the earnings that we've gotten, including from Peloton, which actually reported better than expected earnings. Still, the price has not gone above the IPO initial valuation yet. We will talk about that. Plus, we'll take a look at the bond market sell-off. But right now, let's head over to our own John Tucker for a Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
And investors cycling to nowhere today after yesterday's records, Lisa. We have the S&P 500 down about 3 points right now, 3,074. 6 of the 11 industry groups in the S&P 500, they're lower right now. Real estate and utilities leading those declines. Chesapeake Energy tumbling after the U.S. natural gas producer posted a wider than expected third quarter loss. It said it may not be able to continue as a going concern if depressed oil and gas prices persist. Well, the global growth scare isn't over, according to Brian Weinstein. He's at Morgan Stanley.
Well, we wish we were, and there's 100 reasons to be optimistic, but you really haven't seen a lot of data that shows it is. Listen, the markets are expecting PMIs to go up. The markets are expecting employment to be okay. The danger is that it doesn't come through at this point.
And the U.S. service industries expanding more than forecast in October. After tumbling to a 3-year low, a measure of employment orders, business activity, that all improved. It indicates stable but moderate growth in the biggest part of the U.S. economy. Again, the S&P 500 3 points lower. The Dow is up 29 points, 27,491. The NASDAQ Composite Index down about 2 points at 8431. Now look at those bonds. The sell-off continues. 10-year yield is up to 1.86%. We have Brent crude right now up 93 cents a barrel, 63.7 a barrel. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
John Tucker, thank you so much. Bloomberg Markets is brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the 6th straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit Commonwealth.com to learn more. Well, as John Tucker was just reporting, equity indices are mixed today. Let's see where the action is with small caps. Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson. Dave, what are you looking at?
Well, I'm looking at green. We can start there. The Russell 2000 index up 0.3%, while the S&P 500's down 0.1%. Biggest gain in the Russell by far belongs to NextCure, whose ticker is NXTC. The drug developer has surged 96% after the end of a share lockup related to its initial public offering in May. In fact, NextCure's shares have risen so fast that at the moment trading is halted. Forterra, ticker FOREX.
By the way, I love how you stopped to really allow that to sink in. Thank you. Carry on.
That's what they call a volatility trading pause
all right.
on the NASDAQ.
We paused in honor of that.
Indeed. Forterra, ticker FRTA, has climbed 18.5%. The maker of concrete products posted third quarter earnings and sales that beat analyst average estimates in a Bloomberg survey. And Shenandoah Telecommunications, ticker SHEN, also up about 18.5%. The local phone company was picked to join the S&P Small Cap 600 index before Friday's open. Now, the Russell's steepest drop belongs to Myriad Genetics, ticker MYGN. The maker of diagnostic tests has declined almost 41%. Fiscal first quarter results missed estimates, and the company cut its full year profit forecast. And Armstrong Flooring, ticker AFI, has fallen more than 34.5%. The maker of vinyl and wood floors posted a third quarter loss as revenue came up short of estimates.
Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, thank you so much for that update and the dramatic pauses. Love them. I want to shift gears to exercise. Peloton Interactive posting better than expected forecasts for 2020, beating estimates pretty much across the board. Shares jumping, yet Peloton still not set to close above its IPO price, which means that it and Smile Direct are the only two $1 billion or more U.S. IPOs that have never closed above the offer price. Joining us now, Julie Verhaeg, who covers this company for Bloomberg News. She also is a huge fitness fanatic, so personally will have some experience, I'm sure, with Peloton as well. Julie, thank you so much for joining us. So just give us the highlights from this earnings release.
Yes, I mean, there were a lot of highlights, which makes it kind of confusing as to why they're going lower. Like you said, they beat on the current quarter. They beat on what Wall Street was expecting for the future in terms of revenue, sales, member growth across the board. But I think something that what might have spooked them on the call that they had at 8:30 with analysts was that when asked about profitability, which is suddenly a very important term in, Silicon Valley and elsewhere, just given a lot of IPOs that are not profitable, the response from CEO John Foley wasn't one that I think Wall Street necessarily wanted to hear. It was that we're going to keep focusing on growth and not on profitability. So essentially not expecting that anytime soon. And I think that was something that maybe Wall Street wanted a different answer on, and that I think, like, you look at Uber and others that you mentioned that have gone public that are still not profitable, it seems like suddenly that is far more important to investors than what it would have been maybe even just 5 or 6 months ago.
Yeah, Joey, that's really interesting. It seems like, the management team, maybe they're not reading the room correctly, because the room has really changed. The market's really changed, I think, since they went public. The stock's down 4% here, so I think you're right. They didn't like what they heard on the call, despite the relatively good numbers. So they're saying they're not going to be profitable until 2023. Is there a sense that if they wanted to, they could get to profitability sooner? We saw that from Uber today. They kind of pushed up by a year their profit goal. So is there a sense in the market that if they wanted to, they could?
Yeah, on the call, he also said that he's confident if they did pull back on some of the growth initiatives, like they're working on a few new products. They recently expanded into Canada, the UK, Germany, other popular fitness markets, that they could be profitable very soon. But he said that the board is very focused on, not being profitable tomorrow and making that more of a managed outcome in the future instead.
So, Julie, given your experience in fitness, what do you think of Peloton?
I mean, I think they obviously have a large first mover advantage. Whenever I go to the gym now, like I'm a Peloton user. I own one of their pieces of equipment, the bike. And this morning before I talked to John Foley, I did one of their workouts on my phone down on our apartment gym. I think they have a lot of great content on there. And there are other competitors out there that are trying to move into this space as well, as they see a lot of people just wanting to save time to work out at home rather than go outside and, get more time with their family, et cetera, while still being able to focus on a lot of the personal health initiatives. So I do see a lot of demand in this space, and Peloton's lucky that it has that first mover advantage. But sometimes being the first mover also isn't the best case scenario. You see other companies come out afterwards, like Fitbit, I believe, was out before the Apple Watch, but now you see that Fitbit tumbled a lot and got bought by Google since the Apple Watch did so well. So I think maybe that's another concern that investors have. There's no sign that that is going to happen to Peloton, I should be clear, but that is something that, I'm sure are on Wall Street's minds. We see a lot of fitness fads out there.
So, Julie, do you take, I'm guessing, the hardest rides possible on Peloton?
Of course, she's a trainer.
Trainers have recoveries too, and they do have different filters that you can have on the app where, like, hey, I need a recovery run today, or hey, I need a HIIT run today, or hey, I'm training for a marathon, let's do a mileage-based class today. And so I think that they've done a lot of good things on content and improving that over the past year or so, adding new instructors, adding new filters, adding new, like, changing up the leaderboard and what your console actually looks like. They definitely want to keep improving their products just so, the members that already do have it are happy with what they have continued in the future.
Julie Verhaeghe, thank you so much for joining us with your, primary knowledge of this the fitness stuff. I mean, people love their Pelotons.
Honestly, it's important to get that perspective, because I've heard some people say there is such good content, and other people say there's so much content it's hard to filter through if you don't know. I'm really boring. I just run. I can't deal with all the choices, so I just run. What do? You surf.
I just ride my bike. It's an e-bike, though.
Yeah, whatever. You literally have an electric bike.
I literally have an electric bike
that you do for exercise.
Exactly right. That was Julie Verhaeghe, Bloomberg News, bringing it down the news for Peloton. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for world and national headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Paul, we await the release of more transcripts from the closed-door House impeachment investigation. The committees plan to release testimony from Kurt Volker, the former special envoy to Ukraine, and Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the European Union. Democrat Jamie Raskin sits on the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees. He says all the witnesses who have come forward in their inquiry are painting a picture of a Ukraine shakedown engineered by President Trump.
This was a besieged foreign ally resisting Russian aggression, the occupation of Crimea, and the president used $391 million in foreign military and security assistance that we had voted for them as a lever to extract political dirt on his rivals.
Two more Trump administration witnesses are scheduled to give closed-door depositions today. Neither is expected to show up. President Trump is offering to help Mexico's government, quote, wage war on drug cartels after an ambush in northern Mexico. The country's top security official says 3 women and 6 children were shot dead when cartel gunmen, apparently mistaking their SUVs for rival gangs, opened fire. Lee Stadden says the victims were members of her family from a breakaway Mormon sect.
My sister could actually see the smoke from her house, and they heard the gunshots. Just can't believe that this actually happened.
Mexico security chief says 8 other children were wounded. 1 is still missing. 5 have been taken to hospitals in Phoenix, Arizona. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Full breakfast, cup of coffee, whatever you in the morning, have it at daybreak.
What's the outlook for the pound if there is another election?
Nathan Hager.
The U.S. could still play those tariffs?
And Karen Moscow.
It is the 5th major industry player to make some sort of zero commission offer.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
Bloomberg has more from Hong Kong.
Weekdays at 5 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient.
That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top?
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Then it was time for glow-in-the-dark mini-golf. I got a hole in one. Well, 3. I'm a bit rusty, okay? There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
It's another Tuesday afternoon. Yet another miserable day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Experience Mexican culture and relax by the Caribbean Sea. Fly from London Gatwick to Cancun with British Airways. From £275 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
So it's not fair. Self-service checkouts. Let's forget the fact you're now working on a supermarket checkout. As soon as you put anything past the scanner and placed it down on that bagging area, you literally just nudge. Literally, a blueberry falls out the bag. And it's going, thanks to getting assistance. You need assistance. And now you've got to wait there for hours because everyone else is moving things. It's just not fair.
If you want fair, you want fibre broadband from TalkTalk. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
Right, listen up, adults. The Sun is giving away over £600 worth of free books for schools when you collect tokens. Wow, that's a lot of money. To make sure they don't miss out, you need to pester your school to sign up by the 22nd of November. If you don't, you'll have to go onto the naughty step. Pick up the Sun for more info. T's and C's apply.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
He shoots it. It's good. It's a 1-point lead. They don't have a timeout.
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss.
You're off to Wiggins, straight away on the triple try. Bingo! He knocks it down at the buzzer.
The defending champions, Toronto Raptors, are in LA to take on the red-hot LA Lakers. Tip-off is at 9:30 p.m. Eastern this Sunday. Search NBA on TuneIn to follow your favorite NBA team today.
What if you could keep up with cable news even when you're on the go? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to MSNBC live without any commercial interruptions. All of the news, none of the ads. Listen live on TuneIn Premium today.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn. College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker, the Bloomberg Newsroom, with this Bloomberg Business Flash. After yesterday's records, we are mixed on the major averages right now. The S&P 500 is down just about a point. We're at 3,077. And some of the major decliners, about 4 of the 11 industry groups in the S&P 500. They are lower right now, being led by real estate and utilities. The S&P 500 NASDAQ indexes have risen in the 7 of the past 10 sessions. The healthcare sector also shedding about 0.7%. Tech stocks, they're slipping after 2 days of gains. And China pushing President Trump to remove more tariffs as part of the Phase 1 deal, which may be signed this month, according to the latest reports. Dow Jones Industrial Average right now up 39 points. That's up 0.1% at 27,500. The NASDAQ Composite Index 10 points higher right now. That's up 0.1% at 84.43. And a sell-off in bonds that's pushing the yield on the benchmark 10-year note to 186. We also have NYMEX crude. That's up 64 cents a barrel at 57.18. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Let's take a look at that bond sell-off. Focus on Fixed Income brought to you by PIMCO. For investors who demand more than the markets deliver, all investments contain risk and may lose value. Consult your investment professional before investing. We are seeing that sell-off, and it is broad-based, and I will say more pronounced in Europe, where the margin of error is even slimmer given how negative the yields are. Joining us now, I'm so pleased to say, is Ira Jersey, Chief U.S. Interest Rate Strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence. I'm trying to figure out when we can call this a true bond sell-off and whether there actually is a risk of some sort of tantrum here.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's a risk of a tantrum, because I think what has part of the reason that we've seen the sell-off, and it's been pretty big. I mean, it's been 35 basis points or so from where we were just a couple of weeks ago, is because we're basically taking off a lot of the risk variables. So we were pretty rich to our estimate of fair value, which is closer to 2%, 2.05% actually, and primarily because of uncertainty. And if some of that uncertainty gets taken out of the market, like we do get some kind of interim trade deal or something like that, then you could get back toward 2%. So, and we're sitting right at a very important technical level right here. So if we break this 186 area, and we could actually see a more pronounced sell-off, and it is a bond sell-off. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's not like a 5 or 10% correction in terms of price, but it's a couple of percent, and that's noticeable to bond investors.
So, Ira, I'm reading your research note from today. You talk about it on a 10-year trading range between about 1.5% and 1.9% for the 10 years. Is that something that you think is going to hold? And if we do break, where do we go?
Yeah, so if we break this kind of level, we could get up toward about 1 1/8, so 1.12%, call it, or excuse me, 2.12%. So basically, we could go back into this old trading range where we were at in kind of the summer months of this year. So you go back and look at the May June time period. One of the things that 10-year Treasuries tend to do is they tend to have a pretty large moves, and then they wind up consolidating and staying in a range for 3-4 months at a time. And we've seen that several times over the last year, but even if you went back a decade, you see that those trading ranges wind up becoming very defined, and you can take advantage of those trading ranges. And I think we might be at the cusp of either we're testing the very top of what will be a trading range, or we'll break through that and make a new trading range, which means that we could see another 25 basis points or so of sell-off in 10-year yields.
We haven't actually gotten a deal. Nothing actually has happened. We've gotten headlines, and yet we're seeing some sustained moves here. Yeah. What would actually happen if we get a deal?
Yeah, well, that's, I think, would be the impetus to move us up another 20 or 30 basis points in terms of the 10-year yield. And, and then people will start to say, well, now that we've broken 2%, we could go back to 3%, which is where we were this time last year, right? So I think that's a little bit too optimistic, because I do think that there are global, the global rate situation will wind up keeping yields a little bit more muted than they would be if we were only looking at the U.S. economy and a U.S. trade deal. But nonetheless, it certainly would bring basically take out all of the risk premia that's currently built into the market at a minimum, and maybe even go the other way, because one thing that we note with our fair value model is that we spend a fair bit of time sometimes rich to fair value like we are now, but then we spend almost an equal amount of time obviously cheap to fair value. So it's possible that with fair value around 2.05%, that you can wind up at 2.25% or 2.2%. 2% for a few months. That would not be surprising either. So again, this 186 area on 10-year yield, that is going to be pivotal right now for where we end up in that next range. Is it below that or above that? And I suspect that we might be above that just based on some of the momentum and some of the price action we've seen recently.
So, Ira, now that we've had several days to digest the Fed rate cut and some of the rhetoric and commentary coming out of Fed Chairman, what is your sense as to kind of the next moves for the Fed? I think we're hearing more and more talk of maybe one more cut sometime next year. Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Well, that's what the market's price. So the market's price for basically one cut sometime in the next 9 months or so, basically May or June of next year. But at the same time, I think that that's basically telling you that the market's not convinced that they're going to cut at all. And the market, I think, is trying to be a little bit optimistic maybe here, whereas the market kind of, I don't want to say forced the Fed's hand, but at the same time, I think the market was kind of had the Fed psychology in there. And I think the fact that you've had a number of members who have dissented for all of the recent cuts, the fact that you have, Chair Powell, also Vice Chair Clarida, all kind of saying like, look, at these long and variable lags that monetary policy takes place. We've cut interest rates 3 times. That's a pretty big interest rate cut given where the level of rates are right now. Let's see what that does over the next 6 months before we do anything. And that's basically what the market's pricing for, is basically on hold for 6 months, and then maybe in May or June of next year, cutting again.
Ira Jersey, thank you so much for joining us. Ira is a chief U.S. rate strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us on the phone. Yeah, it seems like, there was talk there for a while, several months ago, where there would be multiple rate cuts. But I think the commentary, and as Ira suggested, the market has kind of moved away from that to perhaps just one more cut sometime next year.
Yeah, and, it's remarkable when we're talking about a bond market sell-off. It's not that significant. We're still way below where we were at the end of last year. So I think it's a sort of important perspective to have as we talk about a slight move up in yields. The question I have is really, what's the ceiling? I mean, Ira's talking about 2.5%.
Yep.
Is there something that could push it further?
Push it further, yeah, exactly. Looking at the 10-year right now, down 23.30 seconds, pushing the 10-year yield up to 1.86, that number that Ira was just mentioning. The 2 years at 1.63%, so we do have a little bit of a steepness in the curves between the 10s and the 2s. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are a little changed. Investors are seeing signs that America and China are advancing toward a trade deal. OPEC slashed estimates for the amount of oil it will need to pump in coming years, projecting that its share of world markets will shrink until the middle of the next decade. The producer group expects that demand for its oil will slide by about 7% over the next 4 years. Kroger gaining after saying profit next year will be better than analysts are predicting. The grocery giant under siege on 2 fronts. Lower price discounters like Walmart are luring away value-focused shoppers, while Amazon.com is expanding free fresh food deliveries for Prime members. And the latest victim of the retail apocalypse, a company that makes fixtures for retailers such as checkout tables. Fleetwood Industries filed for Chapter 11. The small company counts big distressed retailers like JCPenney, Neiman Marcus, and Destination Maternity among its customers. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Join us in New York City on November 21st as Bloomberg Pursuits convenes the second annual The Year Ahead Luxury. Speakers include Jennifer Hyman, CEO Rent the Runway, Alessandro Bogliolo, CEO Tiffany & Company, Robert A.M. Stern, renowned architect. Supporting sponsor, Diamond Producers Association. Participating sponsor, St. Regis Hotels and Resorts. For more information, go to BloombergLive.com/TYA Luxury. Invitation code RADIO.
In-depth analysis, concise.
It's another Tuesday afternoon, yet another miserable day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to enjoy a warm Bayesian welcome.
How are you doing? Enjoying the sunshine?
Fly from London Gatwick to Barbados with British Airways with with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £699 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions by limited availability selected flights in March.
Ladies and gentlemen, behold the world's most fantastical, sensational number. 74 billion. Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot is a massive £74 million.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
In the stock market and in life, everything can change from 1 minute to the next. Be the first to hear the latest money news and market trends with CNBC on TuneIn. Wherever your day takes you, listen to CNBC's full slate of programming, including shows like Fast Money, Squawk Box, and Mad Money with Jim Cramer. And when the next big business story breaks, CNBC lets you know with live updates and commentary. At the office, at home, or on the go. Search CNBC on TuneIn to listen.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio on the app. Explore exclusive content. Learn about hot new podcasts and get alerted when the big game, well, it's about to begin. Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Hey, can't watch the big NBA game because your life's just too busy? I've got some news for you. TuneIn Premium is the answer to all your problems. Hear every home and away game live or on demand everywhere you go. Just search NBA to listen.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Pulled into the end zone, and he's yanked in by a lineman for the touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Oh, it's gone! It's into the end zone! Seahawks win! Touchdown!
This Thursday, hear the home and away call as the 4-5 Los Angeles Chargers visit the 4-4 Oakland Raiders at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
15-10, 5, touchdown, Denver!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
On this week's On the Media,
we really need to start framing this differently.
The way we report the story of the California wildfires, like blaming the power company, obscures the underlying structural problems.
I despair that our contemporary politics can in any way deal with the challenge that this century presents us.
Don't miss this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast from WNYC Studios on TuneIn today.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
When we walked in this morning, the talk was happy when it came to trade, and that was driving the action. We'll talk more about the latest there. But we'll also talk about the fact that markets have since turned south. S&P is actually now negative as people reassess, and we'll discuss that as well. Right now, let's head over to John Tucker for some numbers. John.
Yeah, the major averages, they are mixed now after yesterday's record closes for all three indices. As you say, the S&P 500 kind of running in place. Not much change. The Dow's up 33 points. The Nasdaq Composite Index 6 points higher. There's an air of optimism. The wave of interest rate cuts, including the Federal Reserve's cut, mounting hopes of a trade deal, seem to be buoying confidence in financial markets. Also getting some key economic indicators showing signs of stabilization after recent declines. Take, for instance, the renewed growth in America's service industries. Let's get more from Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
The ISM non-manufacturing index bounced back from a 3-year low in October, advancing to 54.7.
I think I recall when you came into
employment,
the job,
business
you were looking
activity,
at
and
maybe
orders
a
all
15%
improved,
chance of
indicating
recession.
stable growth.
Recently you've
While
said
October's ISM
it's getting
reading
closer
is
to 25.
Well, right now, the S&P 500 2 points lower. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 34 points at 27,496. The Nasdaq Composite Index is up 7 points at 8,440. 10-year yield right now, 185, as the price declines by 22 seconds. And we have NYMEX crude up 56 cents a barrel right now at 57.10. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, Chinese President Xi stressed China's commitment to the global trading order as his trade negotiations wrangle with the U.S. over rolling back punitive tariffs ahead of a Phase 1 deal. To get the latest on what is going on with global trade, global economics, we welcome Michael McKee. He covers all things economics. He's the economics editor for Bloomberg Television and Radio. So, Michael, again, we came in this morning and it seemed like, some of the rhetoric was going a little bit on the positive side. How are you viewing what's going on with China right now?
I'm sort of neutral at this point. We've had a lot of positive rhetoric over now it's been years that we've been in this trade war, and doesn't always pan out. Quite often the president or his officials who've told us things are going to happen, they don't happen. This case, maybe there's a little reason for optimism because the Chinese have given some signals that they are on board with trying to get an agreement together. Xi Jinping just gave a speech at the opening of the Shanghai trade conference that they're hosting, or trade exposition that they're hosting, and did not insult Donald Trump and in his speech, and that is considered by China watchers to be a positive.
That's where we've gotten to?
That's where we've gotten to.
When you don't say boo boo, exactly. Things are good. Markets rally.
When you look at what Phase 1 is supposed to be, it isn't all that much, and it certainly seems achievable, and it certainly seems in the best interests of both countries and the politicians who lead both countries. So one could see it happening. I understand that the cancellation of the APEC summit in Chile has thrown a bit of a spanner into the works because that was a deadline and a place that concentrated the mind, and now they have to find a new place and set a new deadline, and that may slow things down a little.
The latest coming out earlier this morning with China and the U.S. planning to highlight joint efforts to crack down on fentanyl smuggling on a counter to the opioid epidemic as a way to potentially sell the deal in the United States. Is that the focus at this point, that the U.S. is willing to roll back some of the tariffs, but the key is just how to show that we've got enough concessions to make it palatable?
Well, that has to be a key for Donald Trump. He's running for re-election next year, and he can't be seen as caving to the Chinese after he put the U.S. economy through a very hard time, and particularly the farmers through a very hard time. So it is going to be a matter of how he sells the deal. The agriculture part of the deal, that, as we understand it, would basically take us back to Chinese purchases as of 2017, which means that the purchases we didn't get in 2018 and 19 are lost forever. The farmers have lost out on those, and the growth rate, the growth in farm exports to China has disappeared. So it isn't really a question of making the farmers whole. They're going to be losers in this whole process, and so he's got to figure out some way to sell them on the value of that over time.
If the tariffs do get rolled back, I've heard an argument being put forth that maybe that's not a good enough deal for the U.S. because if we're going to pull back the tariffs on China, just buying more soybeans, is that enough?
Well, it doesn't solve the original goal that the president and his people set out of changing the way China runs its economy. And so that, in theory, falls to a phase 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. But is that really ever going to happen? That's the question. If you've taken away some of the stick, is there any reason that the Chinese then come to the table? If the administration believes that the tariffs brought them this far and you take some of them off, that eliminates some incentive.
Mike, I don't get the sense you feel a particular urgency with any of these stories, that you're about to find something momentous.
No, it's funny because the market's traders got to trade. And so they're looking for anything to trade on. And we've seen this pattern.
Right.
for months.
But so here's my question to you. What would make you sit up and say, we have something significant here?
If we got an announcement from the Chinese that a deal had been made, and then they set a date to sign it. I mean, I'm going to be from Missouri here, even though I'm not from Missouri. Show me. We've had so many false starts, so many false dawns on this, that you really have to have a deal in hand, and then it has to be evaluated for the value of it to know whether we've gotten anything.
Any update on the timing of when we could get something here?
No, that's the problem, is the cancellation of the Chile summit. We were going to see signing supposedly on the 17th or 18th of November, but now they don't have a place. And
Des Moines, Iowa?
They've talked about Iowa. They've talked about Hawaii and Alaska.
And I think I'd go for Hawaii before Des Moines.
If my boss is listening and they were thinking of sending me, I'm all in on Hawaii.
Okay.
But until you have a date, and then you got to set up the logistics in the location, it's a little bit complicated. They've got to come up with something, and so it has delayed the process.
Michael McKee, thank you so much. Mike McKee covers all things economics for us here at Bloomberg Radio, Television, and Bloomberg News. Really interesting to hear that basically the key sign that we are actually narrowing in on some sort of actual deal is a message from the Chinese with specific times, places, etc. for the signing.
As opposed to a tweet from our president, presumably. Because the Chinese have to really show that they are serious about this and all in, and then of course, I think the issue will be, as Michael was suggesting, to really sit back and take a look at the deal and see if it's a good deal, a fair deal, all the things that everyone wants to see.
Yeah, although honestly, when you talk to a lot of leaders of companies, they say, we just want something. We want certainty so we can plan our business. Right now, let's head over to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. We have Nathan Hager with world and national headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, China and the U.S. plan to highlight joint efforts to crack down on fentanyl smuggling, a move that could help pave the way for President Trump's Phase 1 trade deal with Beijing. The Chinese government says its National Narcotics Control Commission will hold a news conference about this joint investigation after a live broadcast of the trial in the case. President Trump has been pressuring China to crack down on illegal fentanyl shipments. Trade with China did take a hit last month after the president escalated the trade war. Bloomberg's Amy Morris has details on that.
The Commerce Department says merchandise imports from China fell 4.9% from the month before, the lowest in more than 3 years. U.S. exports dropped 10% to a 5-month low, reflecting the September 1st tariffs on about $110 billion in Chinese imports, although companies might have stocked up before the levies were imposed. Negotiators are still working out how far to roll back previous tariff increases before the sides can sign an initial deal. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
Democrat Elizabeth Warren says she would set military pay raises at or above the employment cost index if she's elected president. The latest policy proposal from the Warren campaign also sets a goal of cutting veteran suicides in half during her first term. Philip Hammond, who was the UK's Chancellor of the Exchequer less than 4 months ago, just announced he's quitting Parliament now that he's been expelled from the Conservative Party for opposing Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Brexit strategy. In a letter to his constituents, Hammond said he won't run as an independent against the party he joined 45 years ago. Global News, 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
It's another Tuesday afternoon, yet another cloudy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and witness luscious scenery and calming waves. Fly from London Gatwick to St. Lucia with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £739 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, #1 LSU is taking on #2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential #1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane to the rim, throwing right corner three. Another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal, every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern, only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
What if you could keep up with cable news even when you're on the go? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to MSNBC live without any commercial interruptions. All of the news, none of the ads. Listen live on TuneIn Premium today.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted. I study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. A day after setting records, the major averages, they are mixed today. We have the S&P 500 little changed and hitting that high on Monday. Financial, industrial, energy shares, they're leading the gainers. The healthcare and technology firms right now, they're lagging. 10-year Treasury yields hitting their highest since September. Oil rising for a third day. Also, gold looks like that is slipping below $1,500 right now. And U.S. service industries, they expanded more than forecast in October. News that triggered a short-lived equity rally, but also dimmed hopes for a rate cut from the Federal Reserve. So you have those two forces pushing and pulling. S&P 500 down 4 points right now, 3,073. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 27 points at 27,488. The Nasdaq Composite Index is about 3 points higher right now at 84.37. The 10-year yield is up to 186 as the price declines. And again, NYMEX crude is up 65 cents, 57.19 a barrel. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We're just looking at the S&P this year, up almost 23%. Yes, we had a bad fourth quarter, as we all can refer to, but what a turnaround here in 2019. To get a sense of maybe where there might be some legs left in this market, return to Sam Stovall, Chief Investment Strategist for CFRA. Sam, thanks so much for joining us. You know, a lot of folks are stepping back and saying, you know, year over year, it's not obviously as big a ramp, but boy, a 23% move in the S&P in 2019. What do I do now? What do you say to those people?
Well, first off, the market pretty much told us that we were going to get this kind of a return. We were up in both January and February, and the 28 times since World War II that both months were positive, we ended up posting a full-year total return that averaged 24%. So, in a sense, the market said, see, I told you, we did have a challenging May through October period, but we're now back in the seasonally optimistic period, November, December, when the market gains an average of almost 3%, and we tend to see a gravitation away from the defensive sectors and toward the more cyclical groups.
Sam, it's been quite a volatile year when it comes to the narrative that is directing markets. For a while, it was the trade war will eventually resolve itself. It will be fine. Then people saying that just the uncertainty that has gone on for so long is impeding business plans and is going to impede growth and has impeded growth. And now we seem to be back to a place where there will be some trade truce and the economy will reaccelerate. What happened to the narrative that we just left behind, that there already has been damage done that could potentially deepen without some sort of resolution that's significant?
Well, Lisa, I think that the damage has been done, and that's why we started the year thinking we would see about a 5% growth in S&P 500 earnings. But now the expectation is for a 0.7% rise. But I think investors are pretty much dismissing 2019 and saying, you know, it's so late in the year, let's start focusing on 2020. And right now, expectations are for about a 9% gain. And should we end up getting the Phase 1 accord, should we start to see a thawing of relations, an improvement in GDP growth, the 3 interest rate reductions kicking in, I think investors are saying, you know what, maybe we end up with even more than the current estimate of close to 10%.
So, Sam, given that we are 10 plus years into this economic cycle and we have had this big move up so far in 2019, what sectors are you favoring versus maybe not favoring so much?
Well, solid but sustainable is what I'm describing the economic growth expectations for next year, anywhere from 2.2 to 2.5% GDP growth for each of the 4 quarters. I'm leaning cyclically right now, overweight recommendations on the technology, communication services area. We recently upgraded our outlook on financials and materials and downgraded our outlook for some of the defensive groups, in particular consumer staples and utilities. Utilities right now are trading at about a 35% premium to its average PE over the last 20 years.
Going forward, what could potentially happen that would make you turn more bearish?
Well, I think bull markets don't die of old age. They die of fright. What they're most afraid of is a recession. Every recession since 1960 was preceded by a double-digit decline in housing starts, as well as a near double-digit decline in consumer confidence. I would have to see the consumer basically say, I am very worried about my job. I am going to be holding back on my spending. And I would then expect to see an earnings recession, 2 successive quarters of earnings declines, mainly because since World War II, 75% of all earnings recessions have morphed into economic recessions. So I would pretty much have to see a sliding off the cliff of consumer confidence.
Sam, it appears that when you look at the futures market, that the market's looking for maybe one more rate cut in the next 6 to 9 months. If that is in fact the case, is that enough to support your equities outlook?
I think so. History tells us that the market advances a little more than 10% on average 6 months after the first rate cut, and then an average of more than 14% 12 months later. The dividend yield on the S&P 500 exceeds the yield on the 10-year note. Whenever that has happened since 1953, the market was up an average of 22%. I'm not expecting that kind of growth, but basically bonds are not really offering an attractive substitution alternative.
So right now, what is the one thing you will not buy?
I am not a big buyer of bonds, obviously, at this point, because I think they are pretty much as low as they're likely to go.
And Sam, we just completed this earnings cycle, or we're pretty much done through this earnings cycle. Is there any key takeaway from you coming out of this earnings season here?
Well, even though this is likely to be the 31st consecutive quarter in which actual results exceeded end-of-quarter estimates, what I'm not thrilled with is that we basically had been shaving fourth quarter estimates as well as 2020 assumptions. Only one of the 11 sectors has seen an increase in their 2020 estimates as compared with what the forecast was on September 30th, and only 1 in 3 sub-industries saw a ratcheting higher of their 2020 earnings. So I would like to see a turnaround in that before I feel overly confident.
Just real quick here, we are getting news. Uber's loss currently has extended to 9%, which means the company's shares have sunk to a record intraday low. Sam, just lastly here to wrap it all up, we are seeing a bunch of pain in specific company stories, in particular some unicorns that are disappointing when it comes to profitability. Do you think that that's just specific to these stories or endemic of something larger?
I don't think it's endemic of something larger. I think that these are embryonic companies that are going to be going through growing pains, if you will. I mean, most of them really just have no earnings whatsoever, and so it's like we're back in the early 2000s when a lot of the web-based companies that were trading on revenues and earnings assumptions. But so I think a lot of these unicorns right now are just going through the metamorphosis pain.
Sam Stovall, thank you so much for being with us, CFRA Chief Investment Strategist. And we are seeing those losses accelerate at the company after its disappointment. We're also seeing the S&P now down more than 0.1%, flipping from gains earlier in the day. Coming up, Bloomberg Balance of Power with our own David Weston. They'll be talking about all things, I'm sure, impeachment, 2020 election prospects, and the economy, how the Democrats are going to position themselves at a time when the economy is generally expanding and pretty positive. This is Bloomberg Markets.
In addition to Bloomberg Radio, you can catch the latest news and biggest newsmakers on Bloomberg Television. Look for us on DirecTV Channel 353 or check your local listings.
It's another Tuesday afternoon, yet another cloudy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick, and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
What if your email let you see a project's entire history and not just the messages sent to you? What if everyone else on your team could see it as well? Then it wouldn't be email at all. Move communication from inboxes to channels in Slack. Instead of seeing a partial set of messages about a project, everyone in Slack sees exactly the same thing and moves work forward faster. Slack. Choose a better way to work. Get started at slack.com.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
All the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
In the stock market and in life, everything can change from 1 minute to the next. Be the first to hear the latest money news and market trends with CNBC on TuneIn. Wherever your day takes you, listen to CNBC's full slate of programming, including shows like Fast Money, Squawk Box, and Mad Money with Jim Cramer. And when the next big business story breaks, CNBC lets you know with live updates and commentary. At the office, at home, or on the go. Search CNBC on TuneIn to listen.
At Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
World headquarters in New York to our TV and radio audiences worldwide. I'm David Weston. Welcome to Balance of Power, where the world of politics meets the world of business. On the brief today, Michael McKee on what the U.S. data out this morning tell us about the state of the economy. From Capitol Hill, Kevin Cirilli on elections today in Mississippi and Kentucky. And from Washington, Jesse Westbrook on the SEC delaying MiFID for another 3 years. So, Mike, let's start with you. We got several pieces of data out this morning. The trade balance numbers, non-manufacturing index from ISM. What's most important to you?
Well, a couple of things. The market is hungry for good news and got what it wanted in a turnaround in business expectations for service industries. The ISM non-manufacturing index, which is actually quite broad, includes things like agriculture, but is taken as a proxy for services, improves to 54.7. Don't pay attention to the number so much as the direction, because that index had been heading down, and it now shows a rebound in confidence going forward with new orders and hiring higher on the month. The worrisome aspect of it is the trade war continues. We saw a big drop in export orders and import orders as well.
Yeah, the trade with China has really dropped off. There's no question about it. At the same time, we have reports now that maybe there might even be a partial rollback of some of the tariffs. Might that turn that around?
Well, we don't know exactly where we are on this because it all happens behind closed doors. But the reporting has been that the Chinese are looking for the president to roll back the tariffs he imposed in September and cancel the tariffs that he's going to impose, in theory, in December. There's another story that says the White House is considering that. We don't know yet whether they will actually make that deal.
Yeah, and what the White House would want in return if they did do that.
Right.
They might want more of the Chinese as a practical. Okay, many thanks to Michael McKee joining us here in New York. And now let's go to Kevin Cirilli up on Capitol Hill. So, Kevin, we spent a lot of time on the national elections, but let's talk about Mississippi. Let's talk about Kentucky and why those appear to be so important to the president, so he actually traveled there.
bellwether. Just under a year until the presidential election, 2 gubernatorial races have captured the attention of political scientists around the country. Why? That open seat in the state of Mississippi, and that potentially could be a bellwether of sorts, as it's really been offered an opportunity for Democrats to score potentially a political win there. Then if you head over to Kentucky, where President Trump rallied last night at a Make America Great Again campaign-style rally, Governor Bevins is in really a close race, closer than Republicans would like to note. But I will say this. I spoke with a prominent Republican strategist just within the last day or so who explained it this way. The fact that President Trump was in Kentucky campaigning shows that in these more conservative-leaning states, the president, while not nationally popular, is still deeply popular in conservative states and viewed as a political asset on the campaign trail.
And the Republicans still have a commanding, I think I can say, lead in the state houses across the country. But the Democrats appear to be eroding that a bit. And that might be important because 2020 is not just a year of presidential election, it's also a census, and we know what that means.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, the census going to be crucial in terms of redistricting lines and allocations for funding for a host of different programs. Now, beyond that, I would note, if you look at the New York Times Siena poll that came out within the last day or so, it shows that President Trump, while not popular nationwide, is much more competitive in head-to-head 2020 matchups in some battleground states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Florida.
Okay,
David?
Many thanks to Kevin Swirly reporting from Capitol Hill today. And now let's go to Jesse Westbrook, also down in Washington, with this decision out of SEC basically to kick the can down the road by 3 years on MiFID.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, for those who are not very familiar with MiFID, it's hugely important to Wall Street. It is a European rule that banned brokerage firms from splitting out the cost of everything that they do, trading services, from research services, and this is a huge existential threat to the analysis business, stock analysis, bond analysis that we know so well from Wall Street. The oddity of this is that the SEC rules, as U.S. rules, are in conflict with the European rules. So the SEC had given the industry this 3-year reprieve to 2020. It's now going to be kicked out 3 more years to 2023. So Wall Street has 3 more years to not have to worry about all the headaches that MiFID might cause on this side of the Atlantic.
Yeah, to be clear, as I understand it, what Europe is sort of saying is you have to get it a la carte. You can't get it table d'oeuvre. You got to break this thing out. But in the U.S., we have a rule, as I understand, the SEC says if you start selling research separately, you got to register, and that's a real encumbrance. What is the way around that?
Well, the SEC is going to have to figure that out. The rules you're talking about is there's 2 sets of regulations with the SEC. They regulate brokers a certain way, and they regulate investment advisors, big fund managers, firms like BlackRock, Fidelity, Vanguard. They're regulated a different way, more aggressively most of the time. And oddly, if you start selling research a la carte, as you mentioned, you then, under SEC rules, you're an investment advisor. They deem you an investment advisor. Now, no broker wants to be deemed an investment advisor, so that's the whole conundrum with the European rules. I guess the SEC, it's so complicated that they need 3 more years to figure out a solution.
Yeah, maybe it'll look better in 3 years from now. Okay, many thanks to Jesse Westbrook, reporting from Washington. And now let's get a check on how markets are reacting to today's top stories. Joining us now is Abigail Doolittle. So at first I thought the markets went up because of the trade news, and then they seem to be a bit more mixed.
Yeah, they're moving around at this point, very small moves, mixed moves, but record highs once again. So a bit of the trade news, the possibility of rolling back the September 1st tariffs, the possibility that those December 15th tariffs don't go into play. The earnings season, there's some misses today, or some perceived misses, one of those being Uber. There was just a redhead going across the Bloomberg minutes ago, down 9%, session lows, record intraday low. And it's interesting, they put up a good quarter and they put up a bad quarter, but investors there are focusing on the bad. That is a sign of the times for sure.
Well, also Uber, actually they're getting toward profitability maybe a little faster than we thought, but they had said, boy, we're going to be great on delivering food, and now maybe it's not quite as great as we thought it was.
Yeah, and it tells you that investors want it all, because here we are in this big rally year, the S&P 500 up 23%, on pace for the best year since 2013. It looks like we're going to have a nice end-of-year rally, but we're seeing this rotation into value out of growth. So Uber, clearly one of these high-momentum growth stocks. So the fact that they weren't able to hit all of the metrics, investors selling those shares, you know what? The sector's doing very well, and you look a little skeptical around this, and I understand it.
Only because I've heard about this rotation, back into value out of growth.
Yeah.
I've heard about it for months and months and months because it's coming, never quite gets here.
Well, a piece of it is here right now, actually, because the energy sector now up 3 days in a row. Over that time period, up 6%, the best 3 days going back to 2016. And a piece of this, David, it's not just going into value out of growth, it's catch-up potential, because on the year, the S&P 500 up more than 20%, energy up just 6%. So if the rally does continue, investors want to go into those sectors, those stocks that haven't done quite as well, perhaps considered to be low-hanging fruit here. Let's see whether or not it continues.
Always looking for bargains, right?
Yes,
Always
indeed.
looking for bargains. Okay, many thanks to Abigail Doolittle. Return now to Mark Crumpton for Bloomberg First Word News.
David, Bloomberg has learned Beijing wants the U.S. to roll back U.S. tariffs on as much as $360 billion worth of Chinese imports. This to sign an interim trade deal with the U.S. In return, China could remove tariffs on U.S. goods, mostly farm products. This month, both sides hope to wrap up a deal. China and the U.S. plan to highlight joint efforts to crack down on fentanyl smuggling. President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping want to help alleviate the opioid problem. This is part of the larger trade talks. Washington has criticized Beijing for not doing enough to curb the flow of fentanyl. Opioids are blamed for thousands of deaths in the United States. Today, more transcripts are due out from the House impeachment inquiry. Among them, the deposition of former Special Envoy for Ukraine, Kurt Volker. We're also expecting to get the transcript from the hearing with Gordon Sondland, U.S. Ambassador to the European Union. House Democrats say in the coming days, more will be released. With the UK entering another election campaign, there's one thing Prime Minister Boris Johnson can count on. That's the support of hedge funds. In a little over a year, Johnson raised more than $516,000 from hedge fund executives, investors, and bankers. In June, the Prime Minister's supporters held a secret fundraiser to tap prominent fund managers. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. David?
Thanks very much, Mark. Coming up, the price tag for Medicare for All. Elizabeth Warren finally says how she will pay for her plan without taxes going up for the middle class. But do the numbers really add up? We're going to talk about that next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
We live in an era where research, production, and
It's another Tuesday afternoon, yet another cloudy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and witness luscious scenery and calming waves. Fly from London Gatwick to St. Lucia with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £739 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
The nights have started to draw in, and at DFS we know that can only mean one thing. Everyone's spending more time at home getting nice and cozy. You can't beat it. That's why our autumn-winter collection sofas are handmade to order for complete comfort. And many are guaranteed to be delivered in time for Christmas. So make sure you come home to a sofa that's perfect for you. DFS.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want crime dramas, I've got loads, and they're never going to guess who did it. Football? How about the Premier League? Or how about reality TV? I can fill that island-shaped hole. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto renew, terms apply.
Mate, this fan suspension is rubbish.
Tell me about it.
Even the radio's had it.
I know, but I'd get nothing if I scrapped it.
Actually, you can get at least £2,000 off a new Ford for it.
You're kidding?
With Ford's new for old scrappage scheme, you can get between £2,000 and £6,250 off a new Ford van if you scrap an eligible vehicle with us responsibly. Also, there's 0% APR representative on Ford Acquire. Ford Commercial Vehicles, backbone of Britain. Search Ford Scrappage. Exclusions apply. Contract and registered by 31st of December 2019 at participating dealers. Agent ownership criteria apply to scrappage vehicle. Subject to status. Free post full credit. Deposit restrictions apply.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
What if you could keep up with cable news even when you're on the go? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to MSNBC live without any commercial interruptions. All of the news, none of the ads. Listen live on TuneIn Premium today.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn. Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can hear every NFL game live as it's happening, or catch it later on demand, anytime, anywhere, all season long.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, I'll talk with presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg, whose star seems to be rising in the state of Iowa.
I've advanced past roughly 20 of my competitors, which is not bad for somebody nobody had heard of in January. There are admittedly a few more big hills to climb.
Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour from WNYC Studios on TuneIn today.
Among those candidates. And as you know, we talked to Speaker Pelosi, House Speaker Pelosi, on Friday, and she specifically said she was not particularly a fan of Medicare for All. This is part of what she said.
I'm not a big fan of Medicare for All. I mean, I welcome the debate. I think that we should have health care for all. I think that the Affordable Care Benefit is better than the Medicare benefit.
So just about the time Speaker Pelosi was talking, we also had Elizabeth Warren, the candidate for president, come out and say, okay, this is my plan, this is how much it will cost to have Medicare for all, and this is how I'm paying for it. Does it make sense? Does it add up?
Well, it doesn't make sense for a number of different reasons. I mean, we can start with her incredibly optimistic assumptions about how little Medicare for All would cost. In many situations, estimates suggest that she might be as much as $10 trillion to $15 trillion off in the cost. And then when you think about the financing mechanisms, that's really when things fall apart. She talks about, for example, immigration reform being one of the things that could help pay for this, a tax on employers, which clearly would be passed through to middle
middle-income workers. There's all sorts of things about her plan that don't add up. And I think Speaker Pelosi's interview was very interesting in the sense that she understands the political dynamic here, the difficulty that the Democratic Party is going to get into if they nominate Elizabeth Warren, and someone like Elizabeth Warren with those proposals is a huge liability for Democrats going into the general election.
Yeah, we're talking with Lonnie Chen of the Hoover Institution. Right now we're talking about Medicare for All and the Democrats' plans on health care. So when we talk about the political calculus of practical matter, if you look at Elizabeth Warren's plan, it looks like some of the way she pays for it is actually by reducing the cost. That is what is paid to prescription drug companies as well as insurance companies. We've seen that in Washington before. There's a lot of resistance from the lobby.
Well, this is exactly right. If you look historically at entitlement programs like Medicare, one of the big disputes, David, has always been how much to pay providers. And there was actually a mechanism in place that Congress passed in the early 2000s that would have automatically cut, for example, physician reimbursements. And every single year, Congress would vote essentially to nullify those decreases. So there's no reason to believe that political pressure would not again result in Congress wanting to hike reimbursements to hospitals, to doctors, because the reality is if you put Elizabeth Warren's plan into effect, you're going to put out of business a number of rural hospitals, you're going to drive a number of physicians away from the practice of medicine and destroy the U.S. healthcare system. This is not a hyperbole. This is serious challenge that's created by a plan that requires low reimbursement rates, which is precisely what Elizabeth Warren's plan calls for.
Once again, we're talking with Lonnie Chen of the Hoover Institution. So, Lonnie, you also heard the speaker say that she wants health care for all, not Medicare for all. If you look at, for example, an alternative such as Vice President Joe Biden's plan, does it come close to that?
Well, you know, some of the details are still missing. I think what Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg and others are proposing essentially is a public option, some form of a public plan that people could enroll in as an alternative to private plans. The challenge with that, of course, is that public option also will end up being quite costly. But beyond that, if you have a successful public option, what you actually have is some variant of Medicare for all, because people are going to move from private coverage into public coverage. That's going to create challenges in private marketplaces. And then the question becomes, of course, how do you pay for it? So in many ways, a lot of these conversations, whether it's Medicare for all or, as Pete Buttigieg calls it, Medicare for all who want it, end up in roughly the same place.
So, Lonnie, finally, we have various plans, or at least parts of plans from the Democratic candidates. Do we have a plan out of President Trump? I mean, what are they running against when it comes to health care?
Well, I think President Trump is going to amplify sort of his record and what he's done, which is to expand some choice on the Affordable Care Act marketplaces and off those marketplaces. He's done some things to cut regulation, to try and address costs, to give states more flexibility. I think the president's largely going to run on that record. But remember, once we get into this campaign cycle next year, it's really going to be less about the policy specifics and more about the grand vision. And so the question will be, if the Democrats nominate someone who is for a takeover of the healthcare system by the federal government, how will that compare to whatever vision President Trump has out there, which is much more private sector oriented?
Okay, thank you so much, Lonnie. Always great to have you with us. As Lonnie Chen of the Hoover Institution out in California. Still ahead, we hear from Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon, his thoughts on trade, the global economy, and the 2020 election. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action.
Look how he makes eye contact with his person.
That's actually known as the treat stare.
How intuitive. And now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
Ah, the happy dance will come in with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You don't usually find the titans of finance, business, and politics sitting around together.
There's been this transfer of royal power and royal prerogative.
But amazingly, they're nearly all here every weekday.
Let's talk about their data. What are you looking for?
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow.
So where does the circuit breaker come from?
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern.
He's got to respond, doesn't he?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio. I'm David Weston. Goldman Sachs Chairman and CEO David Solomon sat down with our colleague Matt Miller, and they talked about, among other things, where Solomon sees the U.S.-China trade deal.
If you're watching what's coming out of the administration in Washington, if you're listening to what's coming out of China, I think it feels like both are incentivized to have some sort of a phase one deal. So there looks like there's some progress and some moving forward. I think the issues are complicated, and there'll be a lot more to talk about. But I'm relatively optimistic based on the data points. I'm watching them just as you are. It feels like we're going to have something constructive happen.
How much damage do you think has been done, though, and can that be reversed? Can the economy be salvaged from trade?
Well, first of all, the global economy is still growing, and it's chugging along. I think the trajectory of growth has slowed over the course of the last 12 months. But what the trade tension has done is the trade tension has acted as a headwind to growth. And so if you remove that headwind, that should be a positive for the momentum of growth in the economy in the short term.
It's not the only uncertainty, obviously, facing
there are quite
investors. Well, in the U.S., I think it's more and more the political situation has been uncertain. The Democrats are moving towards an impeachment. You've got some very progressive candidates on the Democrat side for 2020. How much of a concern is, first of all, impeachment for you? Well, for businesses in the U.S.
Look, I think that process, the process of impeachment and how it plays out, to the degree that there was an impeachment hearing and the President of the United States was removed from office, that would obviously be a very, very significant event. I don't see that as something that's likely. So at the moment, I think we're in a political process where there's a lot of discussion about this. I think the bigger thing that markets are focused on is not the impeachment process in the U.S., but more what's happening in the election. And I think it's very early to really predict and call, but we're watching the election like everybody else, and it's going to be an interesting process in the next 6 to 9 months as the candidates take shape, and we see what I think will be a pretty interesting election in the United States.
That was Goldman Sachs Chairman and CEO David Solomon speaking in an exclusive interview with Bloomberg Television. It's time now for the stock of the hour. Boeing is the best performer in the Dow today, rallying about 2% on news that CEO Dennis Muilenburg will forego his bonus until the 737 MAX is flying again. Kate Alliance is here with more. That might be a long time.
Well, it might be a long time. He's at least foregoing it for 2019. He's also declining any equity grants until the fleet is in the air in its entirety. This is coming from David Calhoun, who's the chairman of Boeing. He was speaking on CNBC earlier. Of course, Muilenburg used to be the chairman. He was stripped of that role earlier this fall, and amid all of this controversy and fallout from the 737 MAX crashes. Now, he's still the CEO. Calhoun says the company's still behind him, but as we know, Muilenburg has been under a lot of pressure, especially in the last week. He faced 2 days of grilling on Capitol Hill, and in addition to questions about safety, the company's role, what it did and didn't do correctly, he also was really grilled on the compensation issue. Regulators, families of the victims, really taking aim at him for that. I mean, this guy made $23 million last year. $20 million of that was in cash bonuses and equity. So he could potentially be taking a double-digit million-dollar hit here by doing this. He's taking pretty swift action, at least to address those concerns. But of course, there's a lot more.
So take Capitol Hill first. Is this going to help him up on Capitol Hill to say, I didn't get my bonus, or at least I don't have it yet?
I mean, maybe, but obviously the concerns around him, his role, and Boeing broadly, its reputation, go far deeper than just this compensation issue when we talk about concerns about safety, et cetera. And actually, two legislators just last night, Representatives Peter DeFazio and Rick Larson, put out a letter to lawmakers saying we didn't get enough from him. He didn't answer all of our questions, still kind of continuing this culture of opaqueness, they called it, basically said that there's still a long way to go in this investigation of the company. And put that aside, you still have to get the FAA getting the planes back in the air. And Calhoun, Muhlenberg has said that'll happen by year end, but that's also still an open question.
Well, and as you pointed out, it's not just the FAA. We've got regulators around the world that are going to have to clear this, and a lot of those regulations internationally are saying we're not sure we're just going to go along with the FAA.
Yeah, the process in Europe, for example, and elsewhere is going a lot more slowly than here at the FAA. So there's still a lot of hurdles for Boeing to climb here. And it's also not just getting regulatory approval, getting the airplanes back in the air. In terms of reputation management for this company, you have to get travelers willing to get back on that airplane. And you have airlines saying they're going to give customers a choice, tell them what plane they're on, move them if they don't want to be on this jet. So there's a lot of, ripple effects that go on.
Just to close us out with the investors, because the stock is up today, how much of that is because of what you suggested? We have a new sheriff in town and a chairman, right, and maybe the board is asserting itself with respect to Mr. Muhlenberg more than it has in the past.
Well, that probably is partially true. Now, I think there may be some optimism on the second part of his commentary, which was that he still thinks Muhlenberg is the best man for the job in getting this jet back in the air. So maybe that suggestion of continuity of leadership at the company may be fueling a little bit of optimism here.
Fascinating. Okay, thank you so much to Katie Alliance for that report on Boeing. Up next, making antitrust great again. It's not just the niche legal circles anymore. Trust busting has gone mainstream with both sides targeting big tech. We're going to talk about a fundamentally different approach to economic regulation. That's next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. U.S. stocks are mixed. The Dow is up 33 points. S&P 500 is down 2 points. The Nasdaq is up 11. Kroger shares are climbing 7% after saying profit next year will be better than analysts are predicting. Job openings nationwide dropped to 7 million in September. That's an 18-month low. Employers are struggling to find qualified workers. At the same time, economic growth has moderated. Even so, the total number of job openings exceeds the number of unemployed workers by more than 1 million. And the Institute for Supply Management reports its non-manufacturing index rebounded from a 3-year low in October. Employment, business activity, and orders all improved, indicating stable growth in the service industries, the largest sector of the U.S. business economy. Donna Wilson, Bloomberg Radio.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba,
please be done.
Over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at NHTSA.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Even hardcore do-it-yourself types appreciate having us curate our best moments for you in one show every day.
The company will expand its catalog more frequently over several months.
Otherwise, it's just too hard.
The DNC will officially announce who made the cut.
Bloomberg Best with June Grosso and Ed Baxter.
They discuss sanctions against Iran.
Weekday evenings at 5 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
From New York, this is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. For Bloomberg First Word News, we go now to Mark Crumpton.
David, OPEC sees its market share shrinking for years to come. The cartel expects that demand for oil will fall by about 7% over the next 4 years. OPEC says the big reason is the flood of U.S. shale oil supplies that could lead the group and its allies to cut production even further. Former UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, Philip Hammond, has announced he's quitting Parliament. Hammond was expelled from the Conservative Party for opposing Boris Johnson's Brexit strategy after serving in former Prime Minister Theresa May's cabinet for 3 years. In a letter to constituents posted on Twitter, Hammond said he would not run in the December election as an independent and that the situation left him, quote, saddened. In Nigeria, firefighters are battling two fires that broke out at a busy market that happened in central Lagos, the country's largest city and commercial center. It's unclear if anyone has been hurt. Residents threw whatever belongings they could from the buildings. In northern Mexico, 9 members of a local family of American Mormons were killed in an ambush. It took place as they traveled between the states of Sonora and Chihuahua. The attackers were believed to have been members of organized crime. 6 of the victims were children. The family has lived in a fundamentalist Mormon community in Mexico for decades. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. I'm Mark Crumpton. This is Bloomberg. David?
Thanks very much, Mark. Not many people will remember Wright Patman, the Texas congressman who served in the House of Representatives for nearly a half a century. But one student of economic regulation in Washington has studied how we've dealt with economic power since the 19th century and concluded that Patman's approach may be the key, or at least part of the key, to how we go forward with things like breaking up big tech. Matt Stoller served as a senior policy advisor and the budget analyst to the Senate Budget Committee, and he's now a fellow at the Open Markets Institute. He's also the author of Goliath, the 100-year war between monopoly power and democracy. And we welcome Matt Stoller now to Bloomberg. Welcome, Matt. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So give us in a brief compass exactly what the problem is you're identifying, because you clearly think there's a crisis in America today. What is it?
Right. So I wrote Goliath. It's a history book, but it's contextualized around today's monopoly crisis. So if you look at around the economy today, in big markets like search and social and airlines and cable companies, you see monopolies or oligopolies, but you also see it in small markets, everything from peanut butter to coffins to missiles and munitions sold to the Pentagon. And this has a number of consequences. It increases inequality, it reduces business formation, it slows productivity growth, it corrupts our politics. And so you're seeing a kind of political reaction to that. In Goliath, I trace this problem, and I show that we've had this problem before in the late 19th, early 20th century, and then over a series of political battles taking a few decades, we were able to address this monopoly problem and restore open and competitive markets. And then in the second half of the 20th century, we allowed these robber barons to come back because of some intellectual changes from the 1950s to the 1970s. And you roll that forward from the late 1970s until today, where you enable concentration and you have a world that's dominated by monopolies.
And as I mentioned, you really focus in part on Wright Patman. That's right. And I basically knew him just with the Robinson-Patman Act. I didn't know much more than that, which is a price discrimination bar that was enacted. Why do you think his approach makes sense today?
Well, so Patman was he was a foe of monopolists and a foe of concentrated financial power, and he was an anti-fascist. And so he was in Congress between 1929 and 1976, and he came from a poor area it was Texarkana in northeast Texas. And what he saw was wealth being stripped from his community and more autocratic forms of politics happening in the 1920s because of robber barons who were controlling our politics, controlling our markets, and imposing their way of doing things on us. It was sort of a dark decade when democracy was a lot of people were disillusioned, didn't believe democracy could work. And over the course of the next 4.5 decades when he was in Congress, he fought to constrain concentrated financial power and open our markets so that people could freely trade goods and services with one another without a third-party dominant intermediary, either government or monopolies, kind of bossing people around. And that was his politics. He learned it from Louis Brandeis, and he learned it from a set of populist farmers and merchants in the late 19th century. And that's the kind of politics that we're actually kind of returning to right now.
In your analysis, we're talking with Matt Stoller, the author of Goliath, a fascinating book about monopoly.
Right.
In your analysis, is big necessarily bad? Because a central tenet in recent years, at least, of antitrust law is bigness is not equal to badness. It can be bad, but it can be not bad as well. Do you think bigness is inherently bad?
Yes, generally bigness is bad. And take an example like Boeing. Okay, so you can look at Boeing in many different ways, but the reality is Boeing is a mess because in the 1990s they bought McDonnell Douglas and rolled up the entire civilian aerospace sector into one company, which pooled expertise and also pooled risk. Then it got corrupted. In the late 1990s, you saw the 787 Dreamliner and a whole bunch of problems that culminated in the 737 MAX, a lot of bad defense contracts. And now our entire civilian aerospace industry in the United States is in crisis because we have pooled risk. So what you find, and that's true with the banking system, it's true with the pharmaceutical industry, it's true across the board, we have pooled risk in extraordinarily dangerous ways, and not really because there are any economies of scale there.
Do you see any instances where economies of scope and scale actually benefit the republic overall and consumers overall? Because that has been part of the theory that sometimes you can be more efficient, you can reduce prices, you can have better services delivered. Do you think that ever happens, that economies of scope and scale are good?
Absolutely. You can't have family-owned family-run steel mills, right? You can't have, in a lot of industries you need some technical expertise, scientific and engineering expertise. There are networking industries, telecommunications, airlines, social networking. There's a lot of different networking. The post office, where you do need economies of scale, or there are network effects. And there are ways of addressing that and making sure that those platforms are neutral, so nobody can use those to manipulate other people or dominate or pick winners and losers. Because what happens when you have a large scalable platform that is unregulated and privately owned is you get a private government. And Mark Zuckerberg's actually said that Facebook is more like a government than a business. So what's actually happening in our culture right now is not business, but across all of these different markets, you have these private governing forces who are making political choices about the markets in which we interact. And that's a political crisis. It's not just an economic crisis.
Yeah, it's important that your book is not just about economics, it's also about politics, centrally. So many thanks now to Matt Stoller. He is the author of Goliath, the 100-year war between monopoly power and democracy. It is a fascinating and provocative thesis, I'll tell you. Just weeks ago, regulators approved T-Mobile's bid for Sprint. Despite the step forward, the deal still almost has to clear some state litigation hurdles, contending that the merger will harm consumers. Bloomberg News' Sherry Ahn spoke with FCC Chairman Ajit Pai on the deal.
Certainly, I would hope that those states would recognize what the FCC has recognized, what many people have recognized, that the consummation of this transaction would be in the public interest. One of the commitments I got from the companies and that the companies agreed to was to deploy 5G to 99% of the American population within 6 years. 50 megabit per second service or greater to 99% of Americans. That's a huge public interest benefit. More in-home fixed broadband competition, price commitment. These are the kinds of things that are going to be consistent with the public interest.
The argument, though, is that would have happened anyways because T-Mobile and Sprint had committed to the deployment of 5G anyways.
That's not the case when you look at the spectrum assets alone. For example, T-Mobile has a very good position in low-band spectrum and high-band spectrum, but it doesn't have mid-band spectrum assets. Sprint has good mid-band spectrum assets, but not necessarily strong low or high-band assets. For 5G, you need a mix of all three, low, mid, and high. And we think that newly capitalized company, once it's together, will be a greater competitor. And especially when you're talking about an industry where, by some estimates, the two largest competitors have 93% of the free cash flow. We want to turbocharge a third competitor to compete with them, and we believe this transaction will do that.
When would this happen? It's been 18 months. When do you expect it to happen when even that hearing by the state's lawsuit hasn't happened?
I can't forecast what litigation is going to, how the litigation is going to turn out. That, of course, depends on the state AG lawsuit here in New York. From our perspective, at least, we want to make sure that the public is able to benefit from some of these commitments we've gotten from the parties that will deliver faster, better internet access services when it comes to wireless well into the future.
You've also spoken extensively about big tech, regulating them, the freedom of speech as well.
especially when it comes to companies being able to block some content that they don't want to see. What are your thoughts about Twitter now banning political ads and Facebook not doing so?
So we don't regulate content companies like that. We don't discuss the content decisions that they make. What I will say is that we've consistently said, and I personally have said, that it's important to have transparency across the entire internet economy. Tell the American consumer, tell the American government how you're making some of these decisions, and I think that will give people better insight into why you're making some of these decisions.
That was FCC Chairman Ajit Pai speaking with Bloomberg's Sherry Ahn. Coming up here, President Trump has fundamentally changed the U.S. approach to the Middle East. We talk with Martin Indyk, former U.S. ambassador to Israel, about how it's working or not working. That's coming up next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio.
You're not supposed to begin the race before the starting gun.
It's another Tuesday afternoon, yet another cloudy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and enjoy stunning white sand and crystal blue sea. Fly from London Gatwick to the Maldives with British Airways from £300 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
They don't chant your name when you give blood or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
Spot a bargain in the Debenhams Spectacular event. Up to 30% off throughout the store and up to 15% off beauty and fragrance. Shop now in store and at debenhams.com.
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and be unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
It's hard to enjoy your daily yoga routine when your mind is on your next VAT return and how to avoid the usual mistakes. But with QuickBooks, the new VAT Smart Scan technology does the work for you. As the deadline approaches, it checks for duplicates, looks for anomalies, and reviews VAT codes. So your biggest struggle is touching your forehead with your ankle.
Search for QuickBooks. Perfect for making tax digital. QuickBooks. Backing you.
Hiya. Oh, give me one of your chicken selects.
No.
Please, I've done my backing again.
You seemed totally fine when you walked.
And my boyfriend split up with me. Came home to find him with my sister.
Didn't know you had a sister. Is there anything I can do?
One of your chicken selects will cheer me up.
Tender chicken breast strips seasoned with a crispy coating. Chicken selects from McDonald's. Get your own.
Come on, please give me one.
Served after 10:30 a.m, except in selected restaurants, which will serve this from 11 a.m.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
This autumn, as the nights draw in, beat the cold with Now TV. Curl up with the latest blockbusters, including Bohemian Rhapsody and Hotel Mumbai. Plus, with over 40 new movies added each month, from Aquaman to How to Train Your Dragon 3, Now TV's got you covered, wherever you feel like watching. Get cozy with the latest and best movies for just $11.99 a month. Search Now TV today. 18 plus month passes auto-renews unless cancelled. Terms apply.
Pulled into the end zone, and he's yanked in by a lineman for the touchdown. NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium. Seahawks win! Touchdown! This Thursday, hear the home and away call as the 4-5 Los Angeles Chargers visit the 4-4 Oakland Raiders at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. 15-10, 5, touchdown! home or on the go. Hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
You're listening to TuneIn, where you can hear all the audio you love in one place. Live NFL games, the hottest music, breaking news, and podcasts. Push play and go about your day, only on TuneIn.
That the president is not interested in confrontation with Iran. And so that tension has led to an estrangement, I would say, between Netanyahu and Trump. He didn't call him on his 70th birthday. They haven't talked for a long time now. And that, I think, underscores the way in which U.S. retrenchment is really straining our traditional relationships with our allies in the region.
We're talking with Martin Indyk, former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, among other distinguished positions. Talk about Israel and Syria particularly, because as you reported, at one point it was thought Bibi Netanyahu thought he could go to Moscow and get his friend Vladimir Putin to sort of help him out in Syria. That didn't work out very well either.
No, because notwithstanding a determined effort by Netanyahu, I think he's made more than 6 trips to see Putin and kiss the ring. Putin's interests are with Iran when it comes to Syria, because he depends on Iran for the ground troops that are bolstering his client, Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian regime. So they are aligned in supporting Assad and his reconquering of Syria. Netanyahu wants a free hand to take care of the Iranian threat that they're posing in Syria to Israel. And Putin is prepared to give him that, but he's not prepared to go one step further, which Netanyahu is pushing him to do, which is to use Russia's influence to push Iran out of Syria. And because there's a limit to how far Russia is prepared to go, Netanyahu cannot achieve his objectives in Syria.
So let's turn to Saudi Arabia for a moment. As you said, there's a limit on how much Israel can do in the region because of the Palestinian issue. It appeared at one point that perhaps the White House, particularly Jared Kushner, the son of the president, thought maybe he had an understanding with Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, to say, we'll take care of the Palestinian problem. Once again, that does not seem to have played out.
Right. So what happened was that President wanted to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Kushner went to see Mohammed bin Salman, who apparently told him it'll be okay, things will calm down, kind of gave him the green light, which gave Trump the green light to go ahead and do it. If it wasn't going to offend the Saudis, then the other Arabs would come along. But it turns out that it may not have offended the crown prince, but it mightily offended the king. And he's still the king. And he still cares about Jerusalem. And he has come out repeatedly condemning Trump's decision and making clear that Saudi Arabia will not support anything short of an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital, which is not part of Kushner's peace plan at all. So that as a result of that, Kushner's move in recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital not only forced Palestinians out of the negotiations, said they can't accept it. They're not. The United States is no longer an honest broker, but it also forced the Saudis out. And without that, they don't have the Arabs. And if you can't make peace, if you don't have an Arab interlocutor.
We are talking once again with Martin Indyk, former U.S. ambassador to Israel. Diplomacy, as I understand it, you know it far, far better than I do, fundamentally comes down to interests, an alignment of interests. To what extent does the United States have an alignment, at least a partial alignment of interest with Saudi Arabia? Because sometimes the president talks, and perhaps even Jared Kushner talks like, oh, we're friends, and that will take care of it. And who was it that famously said there are no such things as permanent friends, only permanent interests?
Right. So we still have an interest in Saudi Arabia. But I think that it's important to understand that the interests have changed, and Trump is reflecting this. It used to be a vital strategic interest of the United States. And we went to war twice in Iraq, you could say, because of the threat to Saudi Arabia and the free flow of oil at reasonable prices. Now that we're an exporter of oil, now that we have fracking and production of natural gas in the United States, our dependence on Saudi Arabia is much less. That's not to say that the world economy isn't dependent on Saudi Arabia as the largest oil producer, and that our major trading partners aren't dependent on it. So we still have an interest, a strategic interest in Saudi Arabia, but it's not vital. And that means Trump is essentially right when he says we don't need to go to war for that oil. And that's a fundamental difference. Plus, you have the war weariness of the American people after more than a decade of wars in which there's nothing to show for it in Iraq and Afghanistan, with a huge sacrifice of blood and treasure. And so I think the combination leads to this retrenchment, which started under Obama, but which Trump has given a turbo boost to. And the problem with that is that it leaves a vacuum. And that vacuum is filled by the Russians, the Turks, the Iranians. And Israel and Saudi Arabia will try, but without the United States supporting them more overtly and effectively, it's going to be very hard for them to fill the vacuum.
Okay, many thanks to Ambassador Martin Indyk of the Council on Foreign Relations, and we're going to have more with Ambassador Indyk coming up on our second hour of Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio. We're going to talk about the Iranians. Live from New York, this is Bloomberg.
They're excited by business changes.
Are you finding the talent that you need?
They're thrilled by tech developments.
What would surprise people about where AI is going?
But what really makes Carol Masser and Jason Kelly happy is telling you about all of it.
This is an industry that is in demand.
Bloomberg Business Week.
What will society ultimately decide?
Weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but Miss Araceli, she gave me direction.
At age 47, Marco finished his high school diploma.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. Reports are that the FDA is about to impose a new ban on sale of flavored vaping products. To take us through the what and the why, we welcome now Drew Armstrong, who oversees our healthcare coverage here at Bloomberg. Welcome, Drew. Great to have you here.
Yeah.
So what do we think the FDA is about to do?
So we know that the FDA has been looking at a ban on flavors in vaping products. And the thing that was talked about earlier at the White House by Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar was that they were going to ban everything but tobacco. That would have meant mint and menthol off the market. Now, there's been a lot of pushback over that, saying that if you do this, people are just going to go back to regular cigarettes, or you're not going to provide smokers with an ability to quit, and pushing to leave mint and menthol on there. Now, the debate here is, hey, we've seen some new data that has shown that young kids, like high school, middle school, like the mint flavors, and the worry is that if you leave these flavors on, that they will still be attractive to children. And so, there's a huge debate about how far does this ban go? Which flavors do they actually ban? You've seen huge pushback right now from the vaping industry, which says this regulation this guidance will destroy jobs, and public health folks on the other side saying we've got to do this to protect teenagers.
What would it mean if they went forward with a ban? Let's assume they allow menthol and tobacco, but nothing else. What would it do, do we think, to the vaping industry? Because you've seen some companies grow up and really add a lot of market value.
I think to understand the vaping market, you really have to acknowledge the fact that on one hand, you've got some really big companies like Juul that sell their products in convenience stores. They have a big online market for products like this, kind of self-contained vaping systems. And then separate from that, you have a independent vaping market. People you see walking around these kind of big clunky devices on the street. Those are more custom vaping things, and people mix flavors in these vape shops. This is a very different market. It's a small business market. It allows more interchangeability of flavors. Those are two really separate businesses, and I think the smaller guys who say we're independent proprietors, we're vaping businesses that are around the corner from your office, we're going to get crushed by this if we can't give people what they want.
And what is the fundamental health risk that the FDA would be addressing?
Well, the worry here is that these products, in particular Juul, to be clear, which is the most popular product by a wide margin among young users, have created a whole new generation of nicotine addicts. I think the jury is still out on whether or not these things are safer than cigarettes. That is unknown, but we do know that cigarettes are very, very bad for people, kills 400,000 people a year. And an alternative to that would be very desirable for existing adult smokers. What you don't want to do is get a whole bunch of people hooked on nicotine who'd never been exposed to it before. That is a public health crisis of its own.
Okay, we'll keep watching to see what the FDA actually does. Thank you so much to Drew Armstrong, who covers our healthcare practice here at Bloomberg. Coming up on Balance of Power, it continues on Bloomberg Radio. In our second hour, we're going to get more with former U.S. Ambassador to Israel Martin Indyk. Eli Honig, he is former federal prosecutor, joins us to discuss the latest in impeachment. Live from New York, this is Balance of Power, and we are on Bloomberg Television, and we are on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. Paul Fireman, the billionaire founder of Reebok, has listed his $38 million mansion on a 7.3-acre plot in the Boston suburb of Brookline. The 26,623 square foot limestone mansion has 8 bedrooms, 7 baths, and 5 half baths. Prince Charles reportedly has been caught up in a $136 million fake art hoax. 3 paintings, works by Claude Monet, Pablo Picasso, and Salvador Dali, displayed at the Prince's Foundation, Dumfries House, are thought to be counterfeits and have been removed from public view. Daimler's chief design officer sees a future in sustainable luxury. Gordon Wagner, the man behind such wild concepts as the flying taxi-like Mercedes-Maybach Ultimate Luxury Shuttle, thinks the keys to a more healthy tomorrow are ease and aesthetics. As Wagner puts it, luxury is about being admired by society for what you have, or what you've achieved, or what you do. So it's crucial to show some responsibility. Amanda O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
To see something far away, you can either get a powerful telescope or you can go there.
Let's talk about export numbers because they've been quite shocking. In Korea, we saw Singapore, Japan too.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
How should investors be positioning?
When you take a look at the consumers in China, it remains challenging.
We go there.
To what extent is access to cheap credit part of the equation?
Tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You're fierce. You take care of business and don't hold back. Taking care of your health shouldn't be any different. You know when something's off. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, and rashes. Listen to your body. It could be lupus. We're here to help you take control. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We are looking at a mixed day on Wall Street here. We have got the Dow Jones Industrial Average higher, S&P flat right now, NASDAQ is trading lower, equities just off their records as investors digest the latest earnings and economic data while awaiting more news about trade talks between the U.S. and China. 10-year Treasury yields hitting their highest in September. Oil rose for a third day, gold slipping below $1,500 the ounce. Right now we've got the 10-year. The yield there, 1.85%, down 23.30 seconds. S&P down half a point. Little change there, 3,077 again, close to a record. The Dow up 55, up 0.2%. NASDAQ up 12. That is a gain also of just about 0.2%. Job openings dropped to an 18-month low as employers struggle to find qualified workers and grapple with uncertainty about trade policy. And with more on that story, here's Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
It's the third drop in 4 months, knocking September's tally down to 7 million job openings nationwide. That's a respectable showing, though below last November's record of 7.6 million. Now, even with the decline, the total number of job openings tops the number of unemployed Americans by more than 1 million, underscoring the tight labor market. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
McDonald's new CEO has just given Wall Street some welcome relief after a surprise leadership overhaul. Over the weekend left investors on edge. According to a video distributed to the company's franchisees, it was seen by Bloomberg News. The restaurant chain is targeting comparable sales growth of 4% in the U.S. next year. McDonald's shares up now by 1.83%. It is 1:02 on Wall Street. Time now for the Market Drivers Report with a focus on American depository receipts. And here is Dave Wilson.
Thanks, Charlie. ADRs are higher, unlike U.S. shares. The S&P ADR index is up 0.1%, and the S&P 500 is little changed. Japan's Takeda Pharmaceutical has risen 3.2% in U.S. trading. The company agreed to sell some assets in Russia and other emerging markets to Germany's Stade Arzneimittel for $660 million. Proceeds will go toward cutting debt from a $62 billion takeover of Shire in January. China's NIO has climbed 28%. The electric car